And it is 3 o'clock, so I will call the meeting to order. I'll remind everyone to please disclose of any pecuniary interest at the appropriate time, and remind everyone that we are live on YouTube and the link is in the agenda. So we will go straight to the minutes of the previous council meeting of May 11th. How does council want to deal with those minutes? Moved by Councillor Westgate, seconded by Councillor Morris. Any questions or errors, omissions? Seeing none, all in favor of moving those minutes? That's carried. Thank you. We have no business arising from those, and so we'll go to 6A, which is scheduled meetings and events. We have a Parks and Recreation Committee meeting coming up, and then our regular council meetings, Public Works. And there is the AMO conference that I believe everybody's let staff know about their intentions for that. Yes. Thank you. So we will go to councillors' commitments and items. Does anyone have anything to add to the councillors' commitment dates?
I'll be gone June 25th to the 29th.
Okay, thank you. Anything
There's
else?
nowhere to go.
What's
I
that?
know.
To the bush.
You can go to the bush. Do some fishing. Can't get much more isolated than that, can you? All right, so we will go around for councillors' items. We'll start with Councillor Morris today. Do you have anything for us?
I had a taxpayer complaint regarding a mobile billboard on Churchill. This is on a flatbed trailer. So it's, 40 some odd feet long by pretty high. I talked to Amanda about it and she done some research on the bylaw, so I'm gonna let her explain that and then I'll give my opinion.
Thank you, Councillor Morris. If I may redirect, I did have Phil, our planner, do some investigation for us. So Phil, you did share the results with me. Would you be able to speak to that for us?
Yep. Okay, so I paid a site visit out there Friday. And did drive past it. It is on the trailer. I can't tell if it's a plated trailer because it's back in. So short of going onto the property, check the back of the trailer. And the fact it is a trailer, we can't regulate it under a land use jurisdiction because it's up on wheels and it's classed as a vehicle. And we have no regulations per se in the agricultural zone for trailers. It might be a firm trailer based on its design. So from a zoning point of view, there isn't much we can do about it because it's a vehicle. So.
Councillor Morris,
Sorry, Jackie, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I just wondered what your opinion is.
My concern is this is kind of a slippery slope. This one happens to be a religious content, but it could be anti-religious or any kind of a propaganda. I don't know where freedom of speech and offensive comes together. I was wondering if we should consider a bylaw regarding such signs that they be a maximum of a certain size. Jeff Smith has one across from the township office, which is fine, but it's only about 20 by 12 or so. This is huge, and I just don't know where. I'm afraid somebody's going to put something up that will not be so pleasing or accepted by the public.
What does the rest of council think? Jerry?
It's not blocking view of any kind on a corner or anything. No.
If you're traveling down Churchill, it's not impacting visibility. It's actually just beyond the crest of a hill, or just around the top of the hill. It's a very shallow hill through there, so it's not impeding visual impacts on the road itself.
So I don't think we have any bylaws or anything that will prohibit that, so I don't think there's a whole lot we can do about it. Now, if they get out of line with their messages, I think there's something we could do. If they're racist or.
The only way to stop the mobile ones is to make a maximum sign that is size of, I guess, of the sign. This one doesn't block visibility. Jerry, it's about, it's 2 farms to the east of First School Road, where there's some electric mirrors things, is where it's located.
So even a truck going down the road can have a sign on it.
Yes, that's right. I just wanted to bring it to council's attention.
Amanda?
Just a follow-up question for our planner. Phil, hearing Councillor Morris's points, is it feasible? Should council elect to do so to amend our sign bylaw to limit size of mobile signs or regulate them in some other way? Or is that possible? That's my question.
It can be very difficult to regulate because someone could have a sign like this, which is advertising something off-site. And then what happens if you get a trucking company, they have the sign plastered across the back of their trailer. They store one of their trailers on their own property. And someone complains, oh, they're advertising this business. It can be very difficult to regulate as to what type of signs do you allow and what type of signs you don't, especially if they're on vehicles. If the vehicle has no plate, then you can regulate it as a under zoning bylaw. I forget the exact term, but it's pretty much not allowed. It's almost an abandoned trailer at that point. But if it's plated, it's a different story. So.
I think it's difficult to regulate what people can and can't park on their property, right? That's what you're saying. Like,
yes, yeah. Because they may use a boat and put up a sign on that. It's like, oh, come visit this farm. We have a market.
Mhm.
How do you regulate that?
I think it crosses the line when it becomes offensive, though, does it not?
Is this offensive to some? I can't answer that. It's religious. Religious church and state are separate. I don't want to say it's offensive, but I can see if somebody could say it was offensive.
Mm.
I don't think you'd be able to, unless it passed some kind of a hate law that was provincial. I don't think we could stop them from writing anything on it.
I tend to agree, Councillor Morris, that policing of the content would be
Challenging.
very, very challenging. And the question then becomes, who determines what is considered offensive? And yeah, that would definitely be.
Sorry, Amanda, I would have a hard time supporting anything that was censorship. I'm a very strong believer, and I might not agree with you, but I'll fight for your right to say what you have to say. Like anything, anybody can be offended by anything. So I think
Absolutely.
we have to be careful.
Okay, I just wanted to bring it up to council.
Okay, thank you. Was there anything else, Councillor Morris?
I don't think so at this time, no.
Okay, we'll go to Councillor White. Do you have anything for council today? No? Councillor Westgate?
I had nothing.
Okay, the only thing I had was just a reminder to council or an information to council that June is Recreation and Park Month officially. And what that is a movement that promotes the benefits of recreation in parks for physical, social, and environmental health. Unfortunately, with COVID-19, Our Parks and Recreation Department has been limited as to what they can and can't do. But the community is encouraged to come up with activity ideas to celebrate the month at home with those who are living with, and while keeping safe at a safe distance from others. So just a little information there for council. And if there's nothing else, then we will go to staff items. We'll go to 8A, which is a verbal notice from Amanda on bylaw updates.
Thank you, Mayor Roundhouse. So I just wanted to speak briefly to the list of bylaws on the agenda, as I believe none of them have a paired report on this agenda. So just wanted to do a quick run through. Firstly, you'll see the bylaw to levy taxes as per previously approved rates is included. Now we wait until we have the County of Lambton tax rates bylaw before we can set ours. So this is just a matter of procedure for us. Bylaw 34 is proposed amended cemetery fees and columbarium fees. I just want to confirm for our cemetery board members and for council that this bylaw is made only, the amendments in this bylaw only are to format of the fee structure in the bylaw. When completing our annual report this year, Heather and I discovered that our former cemetery fee bylaw doesn't differentiate that care and maintenance fee for the new columbarium. And it made it a bit challenging to, when we were having sales, to just not have that point of reference. So that's why it's here. There's no actual changes in fees, just the tables that are included are amended slightly to make it easier. 35 of 2020, this is previously approved, amending our agreement for soils for a 2-year period with Waste Management. So just brought back for the official approval by council before execution. This will be retroactive back to the date of approval, which I think was in March. The establishing a public highway, this is bylaw 36 of 2020 is regarding chalk line and the previous decision of council to register a bylaw declaring it a public highway, so that over time that land ownership issue can address itself as land continues to sell privately. And 37 finally is site plan agreements for the McCann Ready Mix facility to be located on Nahu Road, just north of the industrial park. So we're pleased to bring that bylaw for you for your consideration about that new development. So I don't know if anyone has any questions or concerns, but just wanted to run through the background on all of them for you.
Okay, thank you. So we will approve those at the end of the meeting then, if there's no questions or concerns, and we'll go to the verbal update from Teresa on Canada Day celebrations.
Thank you. So, everyone's aware that we have canceled the in-person Canada Day celebration, and notices were posted in both newspapers as well as on our Facebook page and website. So research has been done, or we're in the process of seeing what we can do for a virtual celebration. And right now, Tourism Lambton is looking at the possibility of, there's a couple of companies out there, but there's one in particular of providing an 8-minute virtual fireworks demonstration for the entire county. So all the municipalities would be involved with that. But we're just waiting on now whether or not that's going to happen. And if that's the route, then we would definitely partner with them, as there would possibly be no cost for us. So it's a win-win. And above and beyond that, look at possibly having greetings from the mayor and someone singing Ovo Canada. So setting that up separately. And just to touch base, the Conservation Authority is determining cancellation of their fireworks, and I'm pretty confident that's what's going to happen at this time.
Okay, thank you for that update, Teresa. We also heard from Marilyn Gladue in the county meeting this morning that the federal government was working on some kind of virtual celebration as well. So I know that that's in the works as well. hopefully next year we'll be able to celebrate all together again, so. Okay, any questions for Teresa before we move on? Oh, Councillor Morris.
Teresa, if Warwick Conservation Area does have a fireworks display, do we have any funds we've already pre-budgeted for Canada Day that we could pass on to them to make it a bigger display?
So sorry, for who to host?
If Warwick Conservation Area
Oh, yes.
decides to go ahead, because they can be watched from cars and the campsite is going to be open. Is there anything, have we got any pre-budgeted money from Canada Day that we could increase the show, I guess?
Well, I do know that there is funds allocated because both Trevor and Amanda have confirmed that. And I didn't think about that part, but one of the things that we did do is I followed up today to say the possibility, there's another municipality that is hosting their fireworks later in the year, and they're taking their funds that they've allocated for it and putting it towards a celebration later. So that could be another option also. As to whether there be funds above and beyond, that would be something I would have to discuss with Trevor and Amanda.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Seeing none, we'll move on. We have no delegations or timed events today, so we will go to accounts. There's the GL summary here. We need a motion to have that put on the floor to receive and file. Moved by Councillor White, seconded by Councillor Morris. So was there any questions about the GL report? Trevor, was there anything you wanted to highlight?
The only thing that's going to be a question later on in the year is we've already got the gravel in for the year, so that's impacted. And we're also going to have a variance on insurance. And we already know the situation on insurance, but just those are the two things that are changes right now.
Okay. All right. So all in favor of receiving and filing that report? That's carried. Thank you. And we had a lot of non-action correspondence again this week. Did anyone want to highlight any of that before we receive and file it? Or have any questions on any of it? Councillor Westgate?
On, we have a minor variance for the Hollingsworth. I just wondered how council felt about that one for sure. I think it's in town. I haven't seen the planner's report yet. And it's in the circle and they can't build anything close to it anyway. But it goes to strictly against our bylaw, even the new one, which would be they couldn't build any houses on the remaining property, and I don't think we want that.
But Jerry, how is it zoned? Is it RH holding?
No, I don't think so.
Oh, okay.
I think it's agricultural. Is it not, Philip?
No, Hollingsworth property it's R1 up to, is it the first drain and then agricultural at second?
Okay, so it's R1 to the first, all right.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, the south portion is now one and then it's agricultural.
Okay. Oh, that's good then. I didn't think that was. And I didn't look. The other thing about that property is if they have to put a septic tank in there, we're gonna be running a sewer line across sometime. I'm just wondering if we should be looking at it and seeing if they want to tie into that sewer line. We'd get 5,000 or 6,000 out of them. I think it's 6,500 to hook into a sewer line. And if we're going to take the line across sometime anyway, it would sure be beneficial for anybody to build over there.
Councillor Morris, did you have a comment?
I agree with Councillor Westgate. The only thing I'm a little concerned in is the size. It's bigger than what we talked about a little bit with the The other one, because it had a septic tank, had to be big. But to me, was it 2.4 acres, I think it was? Sounded like something rather large. I thought they came in at 1.5 or 2 maybe. And because especially if they could turn it on to the sewer. And I think we need to say, yes, you need to tie on the sewer.
I think we need to get some engineering done there. We know roughly how many houses can go over there. And an engineer could tell us how big it had to be and how big a line we have there. And we're gonna need to do this in the future anyway. It's something I think it'd be worthwhile looking at now.
I think,
Amanda, please, yeah.
Councillor Westgate, to your point, that's a good one about servicing. And I guess through Andrew, I do know that we are beginning to have those discussions about sewer extension in that area and review the existing reports that we have on expansion there. So unless I'm speaking out of turn, I think you can expect to see something even with a recommendation soon-ish. I don't know, Andrew, if you have clarification on the timeline, but in the next little bit, we have had a pre-meeting with our engineering firm on this development and capacity on that side of Wafford.
Okay.
Yeah,
That
as long
will-
as we get it done before they build anything.
Yes, certainly. There is a timeline in play, absolutely.
Okay. Any other questions or comments about any of the? So we need a motion to receive and file the remainder of those reports. Moved by Councillor Morris, seconded by Councillor White. All in favor? That's carried, and we will go on to action correspondence. There was just a resolution from North Frontenac concerning the construction in rural areas, but I believe this is already done, isn't it, Amanda? Or
Yes.
yeah, they've already made the statement that those construction projects can start.
Yes.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay, so we just need a motion to receive and file that then. Moved by Councillor White, seconded by Councillor Westgate. All in favor? That's carried. And we'll move on to 13A, staff reports. So the current municipal service levels and COVID-19 impacts. Again, those reports are very helpful for council to be able to see what staff has been up to. Is there any questions or comments about that report? Seeing none, we need a motion to receive and file that. Moved by Councillor Morris, seconded by Councillor Westgate. All in favor? And that's carried. And Amanda, was there anything you want to mention about those? I didn't.
No, I'm pleased by the support we have from council and from our whole staff team. So we continue to adapt as needed.
Great. So we will go on to B, which might need a little bit of background. Amanda, do you want to highlight any of this?
Heather actually wrote this report for us and has done quite a bit of work on, well, she's done all the work. So thank you to her. I don't know, Heather, if you want to make any introductory comments to your report and your work here.
Just that in 2017, council approved an outside audit of the HR policies by SelectPath. We finally have it done. It was a lot of work, but they've really showed that there's no real changes in any of the policies. It's basically just updating legislation to make sure we're compliant and that we match the QP agreement. So there's no real changes in any of the policies.
Okay, great. So there is a motion on the floor that the report be received and filed and that the updates of the human resources policies be approved and added to the corporate policies. So moved by Councillor Morris, seconded
I
by
have some
Councillor
questions,
White.
Amanda.
Oh, absolutely.
I went through this pretty intense. 619, the short-term disability, I'm assuming it's self-funded?
No,
It's an insurance policy?
yes.
Okay. 621, the what is it here? It's the one for burial for funerals, funeral leave. You've got in there pallbearer. Be very careful you don't get somebody that's supposed to be the eulogy or a flower bearer. Usually anymore, they put down part of the official funeral service, and then they got it covered. I know pallbearer, except for COVID, has been a kind of a male-dominated role, and I don't want to see that in our policy.
Thank you, Councillor Morris. We can carry that forward. We did not, previous to this, we did not have a corporate policy on bereavement leave. We just followed the language out of our collective agreement and applied it to our non-union staff. So I believe the content of this policy is a replica of the language we have in our collective agreement, but we will do that double check.
Okay, thank you. 622, do we even have the right to demand a doctor's note anymore? I don't know where that fell in legislation. I know before COVID, they were talking about not giving employers the right, but I don't know where that stands.
I believe that we do, as long as we fund it and the request and the circumstances are reasonable.
Reasonable. Okay, that's all the questions I have. Thank you.
Someone for a note if they were absent for half a day due to the flu. It would typically be a longer term.
I'm happy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions on any of that? Councillor Westgate, you are muted, just so you know. There you
For the
go.
noise outside that I had to stop.
No problem. I get that all the time.
The only thing that I was wondering about, if somebody quits, they can have 2 weeks, or you can give us 2 weeks notice. It's good to have something in there that you can walk them out the door right away. So it doesn't happen very often, but some people come in mad, they quit. And I don't care whether we have to pay them a week, but sometimes it's best to get them right out the door.
Thank you, Councillor Westgate. To your point that we would comply with the Employment Standards Act. So you can issue payment in lieu of notice in either way. So given we've never had a scenario like you're speaking about, but if we did,
Well, I've had it.
there certainly is that option, yes. So you can take the notice and say thank you very much, but we'll terminate our relationship immediately. And there would be a payment due to that individual in that case.
And it doesn't give them a chance to change their mind.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions? Then all those in favor of receiving and filing that report? And that's carried. So we will go on to C, Development Charges and Community Benefit Charges Study. That report was written by Amanda. Do we have any specific questions for Amanda or Trevor? Councillor Morris.
I kind of agreed to the development charges for the water pond for a potential new residential area, but don't think I'm in favor right now of development fees on a widespread area. That's one of our big pluses. I'd like to see that study or that 50,000 held until maybe later. But that's just my opinion.
I believe this was a budgeted item, was it not?
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
Our strategic plan. So the direction for the budget came from our strategic plan priorities for economic development and attraction of growth as well.
I think this is just a study to give us recommendations on what could be done, and we can, as a council, later decide if we want to implement any of those development charges and when. Is that correct, staff?
Exactly. Yeah.
So it's not like because we're getting this study done, we have to start implementing it next week. It's just kind of in preparation. So it could be 2 years from now before we actually decide to implement development charges. I know what you're saying though, Councillor Morris, it is a plus for us and a good, and it's worked well for us in the last couple of years to not have those development fees. But I think as we start seeing more and more development happening, it's good to have growth pay for growth. But
the development fees will hinder your development. If you go to a place like Shelburne where it was expanding a lot and they put big fees on it.
yes,
They
and I
built a
know,
building there and their development fees were $750,000. That was a big building and a car plant
Yeah.
and stuff. But
I think
development
that's why we're
slowed
doing the
down a lot
study
after
though.
that.
I think that's why we're doing the study, is so that they can determine what a community our size can reasonably charge. Is that correct? Like, it's
Yep.
not like we're just saying, oh, wow, we're growing, so we're gonna just all of a sudden throw out this big number. Because I agree with you, Councillor Westgate, we don't want to do that. And that's why we need the study, to give us a good indication of what's happening. Councillor White.
I agree with Jackie that it's good to have the study to give us direction on that. And I hear both other councillors as well saying, you know, maybe we don't implement them right away, but it's how we get to a fair, I guess in my mind, how we get to a fairness between, you know, our community supplementing new residents coming in or vice versa, or new development. And, you know, I think right now we've been stimulating it, and it would be nice to have some of the development help stimulate that in the future itself. Yeah.
Councillor Westgate.
The only thing that bothered me a little bit, this company's did quite a bit of work for us. I think he could sit down now and write a report because he's done this before. 50,000 is a lot of money for that report when he's done so much in the community already. I understand that's probably the going rate, but I
Steph,
would
you
think
wanna
in a
speak
week
to-
he could do the whole report.
It does seem like an extreme amount of money for. Does staff want to speak to that?
Well, I think it's going to come in. I think they've come in under market value. I looked at what Sarnia paid, and I think Sarnia's are 5 times what we're quoted, and we're both within the same county. It's going to be a bunch of rehashing of past work, but it's also going to be comparing our situation to other communities, which they haven't done before, in terms of development growth goals and targets. And for that, I think this is going to be a 3 to 4 month project.
Councillor White.
Is it a bit of a competitive analysis for us in a
Yes.
sense, like where we would fall in the region and in southwestern Ontario and broader?
Yeah,
So
and
it potential marketing in the future too.
yes,
I think it might be more of a challenge than you think, Councillor Westgate, because there's not a lot of municipalities our size that are doing studies like this. And so they don't have a template really to go by. Like Sarnia and London, the bigger cities, they would have more to draw off of, would they not?
It may be all right, but we can't compare us with Sarnia. I mean, Sarnia has a lot of businesses and he'd have to talk to most of the major businesses. But in Watford, you could do that in a day.
Mm-hmm. Amanda?
Sarnia, you'd be a week or two.
There are municipalities our size undertaking this study, maybe slightly larger than us, but all have experienced growth. I think of Plimpton, Wyoming, which has a study like this, as Luke and Biddulph. I think Adelaide Metcalf, I may be speaking incorrectly about them as well, but There are smaller municipalities who are undertaking the study because further to your point, Councillor Westgate, earlier today, the sewer expansion to accommodate residential growth in Watford alone is not an inexpensive endeavor. It's quite a costly endeavor.
And it was done when we redid the sewer.
Right. So, but
We've done it twice in my time.
but there's also a trend of, I think, more and more development fees around. Certainly, I don't think you'd ever see anything in Warwick from this consultant come back that would be similar to Sarnia. To Trevor's point, it would be based on our market comparisons and what kind of growth we have coming to us.
Okay, any other comments about that one? Do we have a mover and a seconder for that recommendation? Moved by Councillor White.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Councillor Westgate. All in favor? All right, thank you. That's carried. So we will go on to D, which is an inquiry regarding the placement of a second dwelling unit on a property at 6190 George Street, Warwick. And everyone's had a chance to read that report. And the do we have any questions on that? Or Philip, did you want to just kind of give us an overview on that one?
Okay, yeah, I can. So I did have the report there. So under the zoning bylaw, the definition for second dwelling unit suggests that a building may be used, an accessory building may be used, but it's not necessarily, it's not clear in the regulations. The regulations are silent on that. So at the moment, they're not allowed. In terms of the options, there are the three options. You have the temporary use agreement, the site-specific zone, and then the severance. The temporary use ones, I know the township has used temporary use in the past. There have been a couple of other second dwelling units allowed, both out in the country. So one on London Line, one on Churchill, I believe, or School. Either Churchill or School. First School Road. There you go. I knew it was one of the school roads. In both of those cases, it was for a garden suite that was used. So like a mobile home was brought on site and there's a temporary use agreement. The big difference is the temporary use ones, in this case, they're limited to a 3-year period, and then you'd have to renew it for another 3 years. If it was a temporary building, like a mobile home, under the Municipal Act, you can go up to 10 years and then renew it. And in this case, it doesn't work because it's a permitted one. With the temporary use one, if we go that direction, you would require a variance for the size of the proposed dwelling unit. So you have the additional application. Site-specific zone would pretty much establish like a specific residential zone that would allow the second dwelling unit as permitted use. And this would be a permanent basis. So we wouldn't have to come back in 3 years and say, oh, hey, you have to reapply. It'd be permanent there. And then the severance application, the severance one was another option. You could theoretically, it's a big enough lot, it could be split in two, but then that you have added costs on this. You'd have additional services required. You have to separate your service lines. The main house at the moment would lose its access because it's currently accessed off of George Street and not London Line. So to have another driveway So that's an increased, that's much more expensive process to do. And then you have 2 properties and then trying to manage them gets complicated. So in terms of recommendation, our recommendation is that we do a site-specific zone for this. And just with any future ones, just deal with it on case-by-case basis. I know the provincial policy statements there encouraging municipalities to look at alternate residential development. So that's something we could look at putting into the official plan when we go through a review this year. And then subsequently a zoning bylaw next year.
Okay. So we do have 3 options there, Council. Councillor Westgate.
They're putting a washroom out here in this, they're redoing the whole garage, are they? Because it's a ways away from the house, or I don't know, 30 or 40 feet, right?
Yes, so they're not redoing the whole garage. The garage itself is currently just shy of 2,000 square feet. I think it's 1975 square feet, and they're putting a small apartment in there. So it would have your washroom, your bedroom, your like a small kitchenette. So they're only using about 550 square feet of that garage for the residents. It's pretty much a granny flat. So they go and move their older parent in from St. Thomas and live there.
And the sewer system, that would be like if there's 7 people in that other house, it'll be well used. Will it have to be checked up on?
It shouldn't be. It's just an additional unit. There's currently 6 kids plus 2 parents. There's 8, so you're up to 9 at this point. In terms of services, Andrew probably gives some direction, but I think you could just run a service line from the house to that garage and just use the same system.
If I may, if this
Yes,
is in
please.
Warwick, this would be on a septic system.
Thank you. That's helpful.
That's what I'm saying, that septic system, well, if it's old, like most of them out there, it may be a problem, but maybe that's nothing to do with us right now.
Councillor Morris, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I kind of agree with Councillor Westgate. Now, Philip, did I just understand you? They're only using part of the garage?
They're only going to convert a portion of the garage to this secondary suite.
Well, why are we letting them off with less square feet than minimum then?
We haven't.
It's not like they have to build an addition. Why can they not go with the present recommendations and stick to the proper size?
I don't see if that's a problem. I would rather go with option 1 the way we've done it before. Would it cost them 3 years from now? Would it cost them again to get it changed for another 3 years? Or can we write it up so that we just automatically do it if the person is still there? That's the way the other 2 were done. We wrote it up for as long as that person lived there, like it was.
When I chatted with with Sherry, the person who inquired about it, they do have another family member who could potentially stay there, and they'd use that extra space for that additional family member. One of their members, I believe, is handicapped. Don't quote me on it, but there's something to that effect, and they may use that area on a more permanent basis. The other question comes down to is how long, like if we do it on 3 years, it might have to be renewed like 3 or 4 times in a row, depending on how long the parent survives. And do we actually necessarily want to tie in? They're going to put a lot of money into the investment to begin with. Like they pretty much refinance their house to do so. So you're factoring like 100,000, I'm guessing, to refurbish it. And then 3 years down the road, we're like, you have to get remove it.
Yeah, we have a different council 3 years from now. They might have a different agenda. This is a really nice family, just so council, I just wanted to make a comment. I have spoken with Sherry and they just want to make sure that their dad is well taken care of and they don't want to put him in a home at this point, which I don't blame her. And I think we need to make exceptions for families like this who want to care for their seniors and make it as easy as possible, in my opinion. But Councillor Morris?
I agree with Councillor Westgate. I'd like to stick with option 1 and be the same as the other 2 applications. I don't want this to drag on forever. The purpose of this application is for the father. And I think we need to have, is that not what they asked for?
Yes and no. The only problem is we can't necessarily say it can only be used by the father. So if one of their kids moves into there, we can't necessarily say, oh, hey, this use, you're not allowed anymore. So under zoning, we can only deal with the use. We can't necessarily regulate who's living in there.
What's
Is it
stopping it
possible-
from, sorry.
Sorry, I'm wondering, is it possible that we could put a stipulation that this could stay as site-specific zone, but if they choose to sell in the future, then the zoning would change? Or like, we don't want them to have 2 residences that they can potentially sell. Or I don't see the problem in this.
What
So I'm
about,
trying
like,
to-
there's nothing stopping the next owner or them from this becoming a rental unit. I still think we'd like to stick the same as we did with the other 2 township residents who requested the same thing.
Yeah, I kind of agree with Councillor Morris. I kind of like the consistency of it. I don't want, I think it's a slippery slope if we have too many variations of this on how it's applied in the future. So.
Can we make it a longer period than just 3 years, Philip, or?
No. Under the section of Municipal Act, you're limited to a 3-year window.
How much would it cost them? Or will it cost them anything if after 3 years they want another 3 years? Can we automatically just do that, or would it cost them money again?
Amanda?
It wouldn't, thank you, Councillor Westgate. It wouldn't cost them money again. We would need to track the agreement as part of our regular agreement tracking process. We'd have to just reach out to them to reaffirm that they wish to continue the use. And then we would bring a report to council to approve a renewed agreement. There wouldn't be any additional cost to them at that time. That's the way we ran it. We've run it with the other agreements that we're referencing. Anyway, more recently, we've renewed one of them, and it doesn't cost them anything because they already have the infrastructure and the actual residential unit in place. It's just renewing the agreement. The risk, although a limited risk, would be that if we had a new council in 3 years and the new council didn't approve a renewed agreement, to Phil's point, that would mean that they've invested in the creation of this residential unit and potentially not be able to use it. The risk is minimal,
Okay.
but it is there.
Can we not put it in the agreement as long as this guy is alive or living in it, not alive, as living in it, that we will approve the agreement?
I think to Phil's point, it's hard as regulators of land use to regulate people within the same type of agreement. So the other agreement we have does not regulate who can reside in the unit. It just gives a timeline. And I think Phil said that we can't do that. I don't know, Phil, do you have anything else?
The
You
courts,
want to respond to Jerry?
sorry, Amanda, the courts have actually recognized we can't people zone anymore. Because at one point, the zoning bylaws dealt with a single family dwelling. So you can only get a single family in there. I believe it was, forget the court case, I think it was Queen versus Bell. They said you can't regulate what a family is. So you can't necessarily say, once so-and-so dies, this use is discontinued. You can't do that anymore. You have to tie it specifically to the use and timelines, as opposed to saying when Joe dies, the use disappears.
I guess I'm just a little bit concerned of what they're gonna use that for after. Are we gonna have two properties, which is against our bylaws, on one lot?
Counselor Morris?
Philip, no matter what they do, they'll need a building permit, correct?
Yes.
So they would have to follow the plumbing code and the fire code?
Yes. Yep.
Okay,
So as with any secondary suites, at the moment you can get a secondary suite, but it has to be within the principal dwelling. So if they put something in their basement, or maybe not a basement, but on the ground floor, this won't necessarily come to council. They'd still have to meet their fire inspection and any building codes, yes.
well, that would cover the question whether the septic system was big enough to allow another bathroom when they do their permit.
When they
Would
get a
going with-
permit, they'll have to prove that the sewer system's good enough. For their septic
Is
system.
going with option one going to delay them at all, Philip? Because I know she wanted to get started as soon as possible.
Option one and option two pretty much have the same required timeframes. They both require a bylaw amendment. So it's the 60 days. I know I did have the timelines on these. It's on what, page 210 has the timelines. Yeah, so you'd have the 60 days for the zone bylaw amendment for the temporary use agreement.
Amanda?
To confirm, Phil, you require a public notice for a temporary use agreement?
Yes, because it has to be done by a bylaw. The bylaw is passed the same way as the zoning bylaw amendment.
Oh,
It's under section 34 of the the planning act. So it's a zoning bylaw amendment you're doing to allow the temporary use.
Oh, I didn't think we did any zoning bylaws for the last two.
that's exactly what I was thinking, Councillor
Yeah.
Westgate. And perhaps the process wasn't the same. Because you're right, the Brower one, certainly I know at least when we renewed it, we did not do public, like the zoning process. We just had a bylaw come to council and we approved it. Whether that was perhaps non-compliant with the Planning Act, I'm
Maybe,
learning
but
now.
we did the same with Knowles.
Yes,
So Phil, that notice period through the temporary use agreement, that in your mind would be required for the other two examples we know of in Warwick Township?
Yes, we can't do anything about the other two at this point. They're actually in place, but going forwards in the future, anything should go through that same process.
I know this family was anxious to get their dad here before the fall for sure. They're concerned about his health and well-being, being on his own and living in a multi-story house. So I do have concerns about the timelines here for them.
Well, I thought one would be the quickest because we could just pass it and they could go ahead.
I still would like to stick with the consistency that we have done.
I agree.
I do too.
So is that a motion, council, to proceed with option 1 for our planner?
Yes, I'll move
Sorry,
that.
Jackie.
And
Thank you, Amanda. Seconded by Councillor Morris. That was moved by Councillor White.
Phil, do you need to just interject, Mayor Rumbout's apologies. Phil, do you need any additional direction to proceed with council's wishes on this file?
Okay.
Okay, all in favor? That's carried. Okay, so somebody will contact the owners and let them know as soon as possible.
Yes.
Thank you.
Jackie,
Yes,
on that, if they wanted to subdivide, they could though, as far as I'm concerned. Like, well, they can do it without our, you know, if they want to make 2 different properties and then have it so they have a house after. There's nothing we can do about that.
No,
No, they could. And my understanding, Councillor Westgate, is Phil has walked through with the requester all 3 options.
Okay,
With severance being definitely one of the options. It's just, I don't think that matches with what their long-term vision of the property is.
they want to stay here in Warwick Township. They want to raise their family here. I think that they're not just gonna do this quickly and then move. So, and I think the severance option is the most expensive, is it not?
Yes, it is the most expensive. You'd have to have separate services for both lots, separate access. So there's a lot of additional costs which they would have to put in.
Okay, thank you. So we will move on to E, the BMX bike park and pump track. There is a recommendation for council there. Councillor Morris.
one I'd like to make a comment on. This has been discussed in the rec committee. I'm wondering if we should throw it back to the rec committee for now to see if we even want to continue with this BMX park, or if we want to turn it into a different resource.
Well, I think that is part of the recommendation, is it not, Teresa? Is that
maybe I
this is just
misread
a
it. Sorry.
temporary close? Yeah.
Yes, Mayor Rumbout. So it would be a temporary close. So in the process of developing the Parks and Rec master plan, this would be considered, and the Parks and Rec committee would be a big part of that planning process.
Okay. Any other question? Oh,
I move it.
Councillor Morris. Okay. Seconded by Councillor White. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. We do have a report here about the backhoe and tandem truck recommendation. Who wants to speak to this? Andrew?
Yeah, so we've noticed some heavy increased costs to the Nauvoo backhoe as opposed to the in-town backhoe. As you see in the report, it refers to about $38,000 worth of repairs in the last 3 years, and typically they're corrosion-related items. So that backhoe in the wintertime, its predominant use is in the salt shed. So it's just, we're not seeing the longevity out of it that we expected. So as you can see in the recommendation here would be to kind of flip purchasing the plow truck that was scheduled for this year, defer that to next year, and use part of those funds to purchase the backhoe.
Okay, thank you. Councillor White.
Are we gonna flip the backhoes from in town and salt shed, or what?
The only issue, the backhoe in town is a slightly different setup with the hydraulics. So it's actually the one out in on Nauvoo Road. It's got a system where it keeps the bucket parallel. So that's part of the name, and the backhoe is the IT. So it's a system that keeps the bucket parallel, and the hydraulics are set up so it can reach into the middle of the truck. So it's better for loading. It's safer, and so that's one difference with this backhoe than the in-town backhoe. And just at a reference, that backhoe, the in-town backhoe, is 2 years older, and hasn't had a wrench on it. It's been in great condition just being out of the salt. So it's, that's just to note how hard that corrosion is on tobacco.
Councillor White.
We had a talk about even not purchasing a backhoe, but leasing one. Is that discussion?
Cost prohibitive.
Cost
Yep.
prohibitive?
What you'd be paying for a backhoe that you'd probably get 6 years life on, would be a 2-year capital lease.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, so that it was that shocking.
Okay.
Wow. Councillor Westgate.
How often do we use the backhoe part out in the township? Do we need the backhoe part on both? It would be cheaper just to buy a front end loader, a good front end loader.
The back end is used. So out in the township, it is used for brush. So that's been one of the recommendations, was a thumb attachment. So the back end can use, so you can grab onto brush and move it around.
Okay. So we can't get away with a front end loader and a backhoe.
I just don't think, no, we've looked into that, and it getting a front end loader does limit your use. So you
Yes.
don't have the option of using the back end.
Councillor Morris.
Andrew, is there any kind of different storage or treatment we can put on this new one so it'll last longer?
It's possible. We do have it oil undercoated twice a year, and they do maintain the equipment. So, it is regularly greased, washed. As far as I know, it's something we can look into, but we do have our fleet maintenance labor does, he does have some rigorous maintenance procedures, and he keeps a good log, and it's well maintained. So something we can look into, but it's as far as I know, salt corrosion is just terrible on equipment. And the problem is, it isn't necessarily one part that breaks or multiple parts. It's when you have to remove 2 or 3 to get to one, and those 3 corrode and break, you then have to replace them. That's where a lot of the repair costs are coming from lately.
Councillor White.
Along the same lines as other councillor, is it kept outside in the winter in the cold, or is it put in a heated shop?
It's not in a heated shop. No, it stays inside, but in a cold bay. So it's in the cold bay. So the last 3 bays are not heated.
Okay. Is the door, I know, does it have an insulated door though? Like, is its own heat generating enough heat for it to cause corrosion?
At the time of they are insulated doors now, but that's just within the last 6 months. So prior to that, they were just wooden doors.
Yeah. Okay. It's shocking it corrodes that fast. Wow.
Okay, any other questions? How does council want to deal with this recommendation? Councillor Morris, are you moving it?
I am so.
Okay, seconded by Councillor Westgate. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. So we have one set of committee minutes, which was the Public Works meeting of May 13th. We just need to approve those minutes. Moved by Councillor Morris. Seconded by Councillor Westgate. Any questions or concerns about those minutes? Seeing none, all in favor? That is carried. We have no new business, so we are going to go into closed session for the reasons listed on our agenda. So we need a motion to go in camera. Moved by Councillor White, seconded by Councillor Westgate. All in favor? That's carried, and we'll give Amanda a minute or two to stop our live recording just for anyone who's watching.